You're listening to the Love Over Addiction podcast. Hello, how are you guys? Today we're going to be talking about whether you should stay in your marriage or your relationship while you love someone suffering from addiction, or whether you should leave the one you love. And I know that the topic of this podcast already is bringing up a lot of anxiety in some of you, because it did for me. I was once married to a great man who suffered from addiction, and I would say within the first couple months of falling in love with him, even before I married him, I started quietly hearing the whisper that I might need to leave this relationship. Like, if I was being completely honest with myself, looking back now, I saw red flags and warning signs quite early on. And if I was really in touch with myself, I would have known that these red flags were serving as whispers, telling me this is not good. You need to get out of this relationship. But like a true codependent and somebody who loves to help people and I'm incredibly loyal, and it felt really good to be needed by somebody. It also felt really good to take the attention off of all of my issues and instead focus on somebody else's issues. I ignored all of the warning signs and red flags, and I married him and then proceeded to stay with him for over 10 years and have 3 kids with him. And pretty soon, about year 5 or 6 was when I really started, the whispers became regular voices. And then by like year 9, it was like loud screams, like, get the heck out of here. But why did I stay? And why do we stay? Isn't it frustrating sometimes? Don't you want to like hit your head up against a wall because you're so frustrated with yourself? A part of you has lost a lot of self-respect for staying in a relationship when someone is hurting you so bad. And whether you're with somebody who is verbally abusive, which a lot of us are, I was, where they're telling you you're worthless, or they're telling you you're crazy, or you're dramatic, or you're the reason why they have to leave because you're such a nag, they don't like being around you, you're no fun, they can call you terrible names, all of the terrible things that they say directly, or they allude to, or they say indirectly. Whether you're with somebody like that, or whether you're with somebody who might not be verbally abusive, but also might be neglecting your relationship and neglecting you, and just is very passively addicted, meaning they leave you alone. They watch TV too much. They go out with their friends too much. You don't know where they are. They work too much. But when they're around, they're not really even around. They might not be abusive, but their behavior makes you feel like they love drugs and alcohol more than they love you. That their addiction is a bigger priority than your relationship. And if you fall into one of those camps, then I guarantee you that there might be some whispers or voices going on in your head telling you might consider leaving. Maybe it's every day you're feeling that way, or maybe it's you've just heard 1 or 2 occasions where you've thought, oh my gosh, do I need to consider this? Do I need to consider that this isn't healthy for me anymore? Either one is okay, because in the community that I've built, we want to make it very clear that we don't judge you for staying, and we certainly don't judge you for leaving. And I know some of you come from a religious background where perhaps your community tells you divorce is a sin or divorce is wrong. We want to make it very clear that I never for once think that God intended for me to stay in a terrible marriage. And not only that, I don't think he intended for my kids to grow up in a home where there was a lot of drugs and alcohol going on. But if you've chosen to stay for whatever reason, it could be financial, it could be because of fear, it could be because you're madly in love with them, that's okay too. Divorce was the right decision for me, but it might not be the right decision for you. And that's why we don't judge in this community whether you choose to stay or go. And I will never, ever try to convince you that what worked for me should work for you. My job in this community, and particularly in the Stay or Go program that I offer, that I wrote, my job is to give you all of the tools that you need to help you arrive at your own decision. That you have, hopefully by the time that you're completed the program, and you can do it in a week. It's not super complicated. It's not overwhelming. I know a lot of people are stressed, and the last thing you need to do is put one more responsibility on your plate right now. But if you join the program, I hope that the goal is that at the end you feel a sense of peace with whatever decision that you have made to stay or to go. So, like I said, and I'm going to tell you just a personal story about how I arrived at the conclusion that I needed to leave. I had been in this relationship with this man that I have known since I was 15, who had all the potential in the world. I mean, you guys, he was handsome, he was charming, he was funny, he was smart, he was athletic. Like, he was one of those rare people that just was amazing. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, like, I'm so lucky that he would fall for me. This amazing guy that a lot of women wanted to be with actually chose me, which is interesting because now looking back on that, I can see I already entered the relationship with low self-esteem and low self-value. That thinking that some great guy it's an honor to be chosen by him puts me beneath him, right? Right from the beginning. Like, right from the beginning, there's the relationship is not balanced. I'm putting him above myself, and that's not healthy, right? But didn't know that back then, know that now. So anyways, he started dating me, and I remember, you guys, we reconnected after high school, and he called me up and he said, look, Michelle, I know that you are going to be able to help me kind of figure out my life. I've moved back in my apartment with my dad. I'm not happy. I don't know exactly what I want to do with my life. I feel kind of lost. So would it be okay for me to drive down to your apartment and spend the weekend, and you can just help me sort this out? And like, to any woman who has this loving, helpful servant's heart, you're like, yes, I can. Absolutely. That is my mission in life. Like, he just rung my bell, right? And I know you guys know what that feels like when people, particularly someone you're in love with, asks for you to help them. It feels like such a feather in your cap, right? It feels really good that someone's placing their faith in you to help them. So he drove down, in his sports car, and it was a white sports car. I forget. It was a Nissan. I don't remember what the kind is. It doesn't matter. But it was like a convertible, right? And so he pulled up and he's wearing like this black t-shirt and he's muscular and he's got his, convertible, white convertible, and he's tan. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm in so much trouble. Like, what am I going to do? And this is so cheesy, but I remember I lived in an apartment and there was no elevators. You had to walk up the stairs, and I lived on like the fourth floor or something. And I had been working at work that day, and I was wearing a skirt. And I remember keeping my skirt on for his arrival, not only so that he could see that I was a successful, businesswoman, but also I knew that I would walk ahead of him up to the stairs, up to my apartment, and I wanted him to see my legs. That's so embarrassing to admit, but it's true because I have really good legs. So he brought he took his brown leather duffel bag out of the trunk, and we gave each other a really awkward hug because we were close, sort of close in high school, but not it had been a while. We lost touch. So we did this awkward hug, and then I brought him up to my apartment, and of course he walked behind me. And he spent the weekend, and he slept on the couch. There's no funny business going on. But I remember we went out for dinner, and he said we were going back to the apartment, and he's like, why don't I pick up some beers for us? And I was like, okay. I wasn't a big drinker. It wasn't on my radar. I didn't have alcohol in the apartment. And I remember him going into the grocery store, and I waited in the car. And he's like, just wait right there. I'll be right back. And he came back to the car with a giant case of beer. And I remember thinking, oh my gosh, that's a lot of beer. What's wrong with just a 6-pack? Why do we need a case of beer? It might have even actually, now that I think about it, been 2 cases, but it was a significant amount. So ding, 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 little red flag, warning, this is weird. But I had never been around anybody who was an alcoholic. I had never been around anybody who'd struggled with drugs. I'd never seen cocaine. None of it. I was just very naive going into this. So I'll speed up the story, but basically we fell in love. We fell in love in a very, at the same time, in the same moment. And I do believe it was very, very magical. It was a very storybook moment. And we had a long distance relationship, and he would come to visit me and I would come to visit him. And I have to say, there was definitely moments where it was I felt like I was dealing with a child more than I was dealing with an equal. So I felt automatically this dynamic that he was turning to me to help sort out his life allowed me to rest on the fact that I might not be as good looking or as talented as he is, but I can fix him, and that's my worth. That's what I have to offer is I can be a little mini therapist, and I can be a little mini coach and help him figure his life out. And I remember his parents being incredibly kind to me, and they are incredibly kind people, but almost really kind. And I remember thinking, they're really excited for our relationship. I wonder why. And now looking back on it, I can think, I think they were excited to get him off their hands, to have another woman or person kind of own and take responsibility for their kid's life. And maybe they believed that I could help. I don't know. But when we started packing up his things in his dad's apartment, I found some empty liquor bottles that were hiding under piles of clothes. And I remember thinking, weird, I think it was a vodka bottle, or I don't know, some big jug of alcohol. And I remember thinking, why is he hiding this from his dad? Like, he's 21, what's the deal here? Maybe he was 22, I don't know. But like, and now again, hiding liquor bottles, mega sign of addiction and alcoholism, but didn't know it at the time, right? So I'm just thinking, weird. But moving on, because I'm in love and I'm here to save the day. And this spectacular man loves me back. And we're going to build a life together, and it's going to be fantastic. So he moves in, and that's when things really kind of get shady. I start to really get to know him in a way I hadn't with long distance relationships. And I would see that, sorry, I almost knocked my trash can down. I would see that he was like hanging out at bars, at local bars. He never wanted to go to the movies in the evening, which I thought was really weird because he loved movies. But then I figured out, he doesn't like to go anywhere where there's no access to alcohol. And at that time, there was no alcohol serving at movies. So in the evening, we always had to be somewhere where he could drink. Again, didn't realize it. There always had to be alcohol in the house. Or, if there wasn't, then, that's when I would find him saying he was going to be home late, but he was at bars. And my plans were not going very well because it felt like the harder that I tried to help out, the more annoyed he became. And the more, he kept saying, you're being controlling, you're being bossy. And I was like, wait, what? Like, this is what the whole deal was. This is the whole, this is our roles in this relationship. I'm here to help you, and you're here to listen to me. Which I'm laughing because that's absurd. What was I doing? But again, I was young, you guys. I was 22. So over the years, I'll fast forward, we got married. I was engaged to him. I canceled the wedding because it dawned on me, holy cow, I'm dealing with an alcoholic. And just coming to that conclusion took years because I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to believe that I was with somebody who could not control their drinking. And I didn't want to believe that drinking could have such a profoundly awful effect on our life. It was like I was witnessing all of it, but it was almost like it was happening slowly to somebody else's life. It couldn't be happening to mine. I almost felt like I was living in a dream. And this wasn't the truth. This couldn't be this bad, right? But what happened is I started to lose myself. I started to lose my ambition. And I started to lose my drive. I had gotten promoted very quickly at the corporation that I was in. I was the youngest executive to work in that organization. I was hugely ambitious and would work very long hours, and slowly taking on this man's life, it shifted. My priorities and my attention and my focus went from my job in the corporation to my job as his fiance and wife. And I remember the day that I quit. I don't think my boss knew just how bad I was slacking in my job. And I'm so embarrassed about it. Still one of actually I've forgiven myself for it. But he was like, okay, Michelle, let's pass on all of your accounts to, somebody else. And I had let most of my accounts fade. And my relationships with my contacts were very minimal because I had put my fiance first, and my job was to take care of him and solve his life. So we moved. That was the other thing. We moved a lot. We moved around a lot because I think because I was constantly looking for the perfect environment to get him sober. And I kept thinking, okay, if I change myself and I find the right apartment and the right community and the right setting and the right location, that's going to get him sober. And so like I kept trying to do new things, and I was willing to change anything for him to get him sober, and for him to reach his full potential. And I was willing to change everything, my environment, my job, my relationship with my family, my life, to get him sober. But he was unwilling to change anything to get himself sober. All the responsibility right from the beginning was always on me. And I put it there. He didn't. I mean, maybe he subconsciously did, but I put the pressure there. I took my assignment so seriously because this was the basis of what attracted him to me. And I didn't want to lose his attraction. I didn't want to lose his attention. I didn't want him to fall out of love with me. And because I had such low self-esteem, I was willing to settle for this guy. I was willing to hustle for his attention and his love. And so we kept moving, and then I got pregnant, and I realized, oh my gosh, I need to get married because we didn't have health insurance, so I couldn't afford to have an OBGYN appointment. So we quickly got married. I didn't even wear a wedding dress. We got married in the Boston Commons, in Boston, which was a park, by a guy who was a friend of my friend's, who was a concierge for the Ritz-Carlton. And he also had his license to marry somebody. So he just met us in the park. I gave him an envelope full of $200 cash. He came to the park and he officiated the wedding. I had my best friend there and her date, who I'd never even met, to serve as two witnesses, and it was done. I wore a $12 skirt from Marshall's and a cotton tank top. And I remember standing in the park, and there was, of course, a crowd around us when they discovered we were, and I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought about the crowd. I was so overwhelmed, you guys. I didn't know where to get married. I was just oh my gosh, I'm 20. I think I was 21 or 22 at the time. I have a baby. What? So I was just checking things off the list. I knew I needed to move because we couldn't afford to stay in Boston with the baby. We couldn't afford to continue to rent a 2-bedroom apartment. I knew that so I needed to move. I needed to quit my job and find a new job because we couldn't afford to. I had to work. I had to find a doctor. I had to move, hire moving companies. I mean, I was just so overwhelmed. Marrying him in the park that day was not romantic at all. It was let's get it off. Let's just check it off the list. And I felt numb. And I knew when I was standing there that it was wrong. I knew it, you guys. I knew this was not the man. But I wanted so badly for him to be. And the idea of getting out felt so difficult. I felt trapped. I was in love with him. I wanted him to change, and because I needed him to change. And I didn't have parents. I wasn't telling my parents that he was, drinking the way he was drinking, because I didn't want them to hate him, as I didn't want them to tell me I needed to leave. I didn't want them to judge him. And I knew telling people about his drinking issues would, he'd be mad. He'd be furious with me if I was honest. And how the heck could I be honest with other people when I wasn't even being honest with myself about his drinking? So I married him, and I said, and we both of us were just like walking zombies. We didn't know what hit us. But there's one thing. I was excited for this baby. I was excited to be a mom. I knew that I would be a good mom, because if I cared for as much about my kid as I did my husband, I mean, if I worked as hard on taking care of my child as I did getting my husband sober, I knew I would be good. And so we moved, and I thought, well, maybe a baby will help him get sober. Like, maybe if he sees his son, he'll realize that life is worth living and that we're worth getting sober for. And that did not happen. That definitely did not happen. Instead, his drinking got worse. And by the time I had my third child, he wasn't even present in the hospital. The night before, he called me from a random hotel room and said, I can't do this anymore. I'm out of here. I'm not having this baby with you. And so by my third child, I remember walking into the hospital and with my mom and my stepdad. And everybody thought my stepdad was the father. And I was too embarrassed to correct them. But eventually, of course, I did. But I was alone. I had C-sections, and I was alone in the hospital when Graham, my son, my little boy, was born, my third child. And I remember thinking, again, still, you guys, I was still holding on to hope that maybe the fact that he had missed his birth of his child would cause him to wake up and get sober. Like, every good or bad event that happened in those 10 years, if it was good, I was like, yep, this is it. He's getting sober. We're going to have the family we want. I'm going to have the life that I dreamed. It's all going to be okay. My hopes would go way up. And then every time something went terrible and he hurt me so deep and he did things that I was like, there's no possible way that anyone could hurt somebody this much, like not be there for the birth of their child because they're high and drunk in a hotel room, like that kind of thing. I kept thinking, well, this is rock bottom and this is going to change him. So it was just this constant roller coaster of whether it was good times, I had hoped that he gets sober, or bad times, I had hoped that he gets sober. And we went through a boatload of things, arrests and bailing him out of jail and all sorts of stuff, you guys. But the whole time I kept wondering, do I stay or do I go? Should I leave or should I go? And I kept looking on the internet, and back then the internet was kind of new, so that shows you how old I am. I kept thinking there has to be something or someone out there that can hear my story specifically about addiction and tell me if I should stay or go. And that is the entire reason I created this program. Was I wanted not only to sit there and give you guys the tools to help you arrive at the right decision for you so that you can feel at peace and put the question to rest and go, okay, I've made a decision and I'm ready to commit to that decision. But I really wanted you to, if you did decide to leave, I wanted to walk you through what that looks like. Because making the decision is one thing, but following through with it is another. And so inside the program, you really, you learn about the real cost about addiction. And you learn about how to dream of your future. And you learn, why do you really stay in this unhealthy relationship? And then really identifying what you want in your life. What do you want for a job or for fun or for family or vacations or physical or financial? And then you learn about separation, because it doesn't always just have to go right to divorce. You don't have to jump to the conclusion of going to your lawyer's office and signing divorce papers. There is a lot of people that just want to try a separation, see how it feels. What does it sound and look like physically and mentally? Just being by myself. Maybe that's the right thing for you, to ease into it. And I talk you through that. And then we talk about a whole bunch of things about boundaries. If you have decided to leave, the necessary boundaries with your kids, the boundaries with your homes, your boundaries that you're going to put on yourself about bad-mouthing or not bad-mouthing your loved one, and how you should communicate with your loved one if you've separated or chosen to divorce. And also we go into financial boundaries, because we got to talk about money. That's a huge reason why a lot of us are staying. That was a big wake-up moment for me when I finally came clean and told my parents what was really going on, like the truth, that underneath my roof that looked pretty nice, it was torture and hell and a lot of yelling and a lot of drinking and a lot of drugs and just a lot of neglect. When I told my parents that, my dad, one of the first things he did was I did a financial exercise that helped me understand, if I were to leave, how much money would I need to support my kids and support myself. And I walk you through that exact exercise, because a lot of the times we don't move forward out of fear of not knowing. And so one of the practical, logical ways of dealing with our fear is to get informed, is to know it. And the reason why we oftentimes get stuck in fear is because nobody's asking us the right questions or showing us the formula to how to figure out. And that's exactly why I set out to do this, because it does sound like a lot, I know, and it is work. I'm not going to lie. Like, I would never say that this is going to be a piece of cake. It is work. It's not complicated. It's very simple, but it is effort. And anything worth learning and mastering does take effort. Like, if you want change in your life, because let's be real, most of you, what you've been doing hasn't been working. If you really want the change, if you're super thirsty for it, you got to work for it. And it's going to make you uncomfortable, right? And I know a lot of you are sitting here going, Michelle, I don't know if I want to stay or leave. So all of this like talk is making me feel anxiety, and it's making me feel disloyal to my spouse, who I still love. And here's what I'm going to tell you, okay? If that's one of your things, I'm going to say, if you join the program, you are just making a very simple choice to investigate your options. That's all you're doing. You're exploring your choices, and you're setting yourself up for the best future possible, whether you decide to stay or leave. And that's a perfect, wonderful first step. It's not a commitment to leave. I promise you that. All you're doing is you're just finding answers that will help you arrive at the point of knowing if this relationship is something you want long term, if it's sustainable, if it's something where if he doesn't or she doesn't get sober, 5 years from now, you're going to be able to handle it, right? It doesn't mean you're committing to anything. It's not you being disloyal to them. You're just investigating. You're gaining knowledge. And so we do have like a whole a module about money. And then we talk about finding a good therapist. like, because you probably should have, if you can afford it. And there's a lot of therapists that are doing sliding scale, a good therapist to turn to. And then also we talk about kids, because leaving with children is a huge concern to moms. And I tell you some amazing advice that my child's therapist gave me that changed my entire perspective on leaving and why leaving was a good thing. And then, of course, we talk about how to tell your family, how to deal with friends, how to handle, if you're scared of being embarrassed in your community. And then, of course, we talk about forgiving yourself and forgiving them, which sounds impossible, I know, but guess what? If you learn how to forgive, it is life-changing, and you get to move on in your life without anger, which feels really freeing and really good. And then, of course, how to trust again, because our trusts have been broken. We have been so damaged and so hurt by the one we love that it feels impossible to ever think that you're going to place your entire love and feelings into anyone else's hands, right? And I know that feeling. But you absolutely can learn to trust again, as long as you learn what to look for in trusting somebody. And that's where I'm going to end this. If you do decide to leave, you have to do your work before you get involved with somebody else. You have to. It's not an option, guys. And I'm going to be firm with that. And I often say, what was good for me, it doesn't mean that it's good for everyone else. That's true. But this is a universal truth. This is one of those truths that applies to everyone. If you do not do your work, and by work, I mean the things I just listed in what we have in the program. If you do not, and whether you choose to take the program or not, fine. But if you don't do it with me, do it with somebody else. Do the work on your own. No problem. I certainly don't want you to think I'm saying it's me or nobody else, nothing, right? But you have to do this work, because what's going to happen if you don't, and this happens all the time, is you will go into the next relationship and get just as hurt, and there will be just as much dysfunction and pain and suffering in the next relationship. If you don't stop and go, okay, guess what? I kind of made a bad decision this time. I got a lot of good things out of it, but what was my responsibility in this relationship? Where are my scars and bruises that need healing? And what can I take from this experience and learn from that I can apply to my future? That's the work. Analyzing all of your feelings and all of your choices and going, okay, right, where were the bad choices? And then how do I auto-correct those for the future? Because what I see in our secret Facebook group community, and from the thousands of women I have talked to over the last 10 years, is that some of them jump, they leave and they think, oh, I've left and therefore addiction is over and I am better and I'm going to choose another guy or another woman and it's going to be so much better. And what happens is subconsciously you choose similar traits with the second partner that the first partner had. And these traits are not positive. I mean, negative traits. And then all of a sudden you look around and you go, how the heck did I end up in this situation again? How did I how did I get in this situation again? It's a recreated cycle. So you have to take a beat. You have to take a pause in between and go, all right, let's do some of my own self-work here. Let's do some self-reflection. And even if you're like, Michelle, there is no way I'm dating again. I can't even think of another person. Cool. I hear you. I respect you. chances are, if you do the work, you will start to think about another relationship. But I know where you're at right now, and I feel you, and I felt the same way. I was like, that's it. I'm going to be a nun. I'm going to be celibate. I've got my 3 kids. I don't need anything. I don't care. I am never, ever going to be with anyone else. Like, that was my mentality. It didn't last very long. But where was I going? You guys, oh God, this is the thing with age. You just lose your train of thought instantly. Like, poof, it just goes, gone. So what I was saying is, if you sit there and you're like, there's no way I'm ever going to be with another person, fine, cool. Here's the deal. Do the work for you. Don't do it in order to prepare for another relationship. You owe it to yourself. It is part of your healing. You have been beat up. You have been damaged. You've been so neglected and so hurt because addiction is nasty and horrible and mean, and it causes people to suffer. And you are in pain, and that is okay. So let's take a beat and let's pause our lives and heal from that pain first. You owe it to yourself. You deserve that. You deserve to be whole again, to be healthy again, to be fully functional and living a great, wonderful life. That's what you deserve. And I don't mean you deserve it in 4 years, or, I'm just going to wait till the kids are out of college, or, I'm going to see how things pan out. Okay, why not now? Why not now? Why not today? Whether you choose to leave or go, make the commitment to yourself that you are going to begin your healing. And you're going to get really freaking clear about what it is that you want your future to be and how you want to feel. Why not put all of that energy and effort into you? The biggest obstacle I have with women in the community is committing to themselves. And that is this is why we are one of the very few sacred spaces on the internet or phone or whatever electronically that's respectful and loving and kind. We don't have bullies in our community. That whole trolling mentality, it doesn't happen in our world. Why? Because we're so kind and thoughtful and and courteous and thinking of everybody else's feelings except our own. And I'm here to tell you, it's time to start thinking of yourself. Let's practice self-care right now. And if you're sitting here going, okay, Michelle, I've looked up on your website. I see the Stay or Go program. I really want it, but it is so freaking expensive. It is expensive. It's our most expensive program because it's packed. It's 12 modules. It's pretty massive. And the good news is that we heard a lot of you say you want the program not just to listen to, but like to read. So we've come up with workbooks. You can read the entire program in a book, which is amazing. And so for those of you that learn with, sight, that will help you. But if you are literally going, no way, I can't afford it. 2 things. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. So I apologize if you are sick of me saying this. Number 1, look at the cost of the program and then go to your bank account. And I want you to add up all the bar bills, all the money that's spent on drugs, all the money spent on alcohol, if they've gone to rehab, if they've gone to get a DUI. A long time ago, when I first started, I took a poll of how much this disease has cost families individually. And there were some families that they estimated it was over $1 million. And because we do have some very high profile clients that have gone to they're on their 8th rehab. But the average was well over $100 a month. Because a beer, a 12 pack of beer, I don't even actually know how much a 12 pack of beer is anymore, but it's a lot. In order to get drunk, you need a lot, or high. Marijuana is not cheap, guys. So look at this. Would you rather spend your money? Would you rather have your family money going towards drugs and alcohol? Or would you rather have it as an investment to make your family whole and better and healthy? Would you rather put that finances to something that actually can improve your life instead of ruin your life? Now, if you're still like, Michelle, I'm sorry, no. Then that's why we have the buy one, give one program. I do not want anyone to not get help because they can't afford it. I was broke when I was younger and I needed help. Thankfully, I had a parent that stepped in and helped me. But if you don't have any resources or parents, I want you to get help. We will give you the program. So go to the website. It will be yours. So I want everyone to get help. No one deserves not to be. If you are willing to do the work and make the commitment to me, I am willing to come alongside of you and walk you through this. I am going to be your greatest cheerleader and your biggest fan and your biggest advocate and say to you, you can do this. And not only me, but you also go into the secret Facebook group. And that's the beauty, that you get to meet hundreds of other women all around the world that are going through the exact same thing you are. And if you're shy or an introvert like I am and you don't really like to join groups, join the group and don't comment. Don't say anything. Just read other people's stories. I guarantee you it will bring you a huge sigh of relief to see all the victories that are happening in that group. You will learn, you will have so much hope. And if you're lonely, which I didn't have any friends when I was married to my ex-husband. I was incredibly lonely. A lot of best friends have occurred in that group. A lot of women have really found each other. And some of them actually, before COVID, were getting together on a regular basis and starting their own little love over addiction groups. So no matter what, here's the bottom line, guys. I know I'm being a little pushy here and I apologize, but I believe in you and I believe that if you take the step, just one baby step forward and commit to just investigating, just learning about your options, just listening, don't even take action, just listen to the entire program a couple times or buy it and keep it in your back pocket. Whatever it is, I very rarely do this, but I am just encouraging you with all of my heart to invest in yourself and to make your healing a priority, to not be like me, where I constantly made it my job to fix and solve somebody else's problem and in the process lose myself. Okay. I love you guys. I believe in you. And guess what? Even if you don't choose to join the program, I am absolutely here for you. And you reserve the right to make that decision. Okay? I still want you to stick around. I still want you to listen to the podcast. And I'll be here for you no matter what you decide. This podcast is created for your support, encouragement, and entertainment with my personal thoughts and beliefs. We are bonded together by the fact that we love someone suffering from addiction. This is not intended as a substitute for therapy or advice from a professional.